We don't take it for granted. We don't take it lightly. We just honor them as a family today. And we just thank you that you're making them a part of our family. Thank you that you've made them a part of our family. Praise the Lord. I don't even know what to do at this point except introduce Winkie and have him come and speak to us. Winkie, could you come? Can we just lift up an applause for Winkie this morning? Thank you for him.
Yeah. Good morning. Well, it's nice to be here again. I'm having spoken once, I'm rarely invited back. It's kind of nice to be invited back a couple of times. I want to look at a number of things for you today, but first of all, I wanted to read out something. My sister, Bonnie, who's not with us, she's back in New Zealand, had one of the largest party companies in New Zealand, a corporate party thing. And she's done every kind of venue from like mini or multi-billion-dollar corporations to special solar celebrations. Somebody 21, getting 20, 21's a big deal. New Zealand, is it a big deal? America, 21? It's a big deal even making it to 21 in these days. But she arranged a party for him where it was all, he had one friend and put him in a beautiful field, and there was waiters all tuxedoed and started this off, and a balloon took them away in the thing. So she does stuff like that. And my son did some work with her. He both did a little work a couple of years ago in, what was the name of that thing, William? Fonterra. It's a major corporation that does boxes and things. If you have a box of something, it probably came from Fonterra, you know, boxes that have milk and all those kind of things. So she had two people that were part of putting this on. It's a multi-million-dollar thing, and people coming from all over the country to do it in my home country of New Zealand. And one person was supposed to be working on the videos. It's an entire thing that was to be put up. And then another person was the main MC person putting it all together. And 2 weeks before that party was launched, the guy who was working on the videos pulled out, said he didn't do it. And this is a 2-year getting ready thing. And the hostess, her grandmother died or something, and she couldn't do it either. So William and I stepped in and wrote a script for the thing. William did the music and put it all together, and somehow we made it through one of these multi-million-dollar parties by putting on this we got all kinds of wild things, from Lord of the Rings, horses, and it was trippy. We did survive, which was nice. How many of you know what a rave is? A rave, R-A-V-E. A couple of you, anybody ever been to a rave? It's a super party, but it's put on at like sometimes 11. It starts like at 11. It runs 12, 1, 2, 3, 4 till about 4 or 5 in the morning. So it's not one that people who sleep early go to. And it can pull up to 20 or 30,000 kids in the middle of a field. So a rave is sort of this underground thing. People don't smoke dope, but they drink and eat ecstasy type things, so they all feel cool in this. And I got invited to speak at a rave. So they put me on in prime time, which is like 2 in the morning. And they got, DJs and VJs. There's all this incredible music going on and visual things. And then this had never been done in a rave before. They cut out the DJs and the VJs and gave me 20 minutes with this crowd of kids from all over the show. And so I actually had some friends in there from YWAM, and I decided what we'd do is put into the pockets of some of these YWAMers a party ticket, and to give the ravers an invitation to the ultimate party. So these thousands of ravers with the guy who put the raves on and stuff, these are all pagans, none of them saved at all. I had 20 solid minutes with them. So this little ticket that we had in these pockets looked like a movie ticket, but it was thicker. So I'm going to read to you what I said in that little short intro to the ticket. I did mention my sister, and I said my sister's events are among the best in our nation, and the staff with whom my son worked earlier this year, this was some time back, is responsible for themes, staging, props, lighting, music, food, entertainment, and security. I've spoken at many venues, from a few friends getting married to a record-breaking 500,000 young people together in the Washington Mall. But I'm here as a representative for someone else to let you know of something multinational, global tribe event that you do not want to miss. If you want to become a part of history, I have a friend who happens to be my boss, who is crafting, even as we speak, the ultimate party. Here's what happens, and this is his idea. There is a restaurant. It's in Dallas. It's called Trail Dust. If you've been in Dallas, they cook some of the biggest steaks in the world. If you can eat 2 of these biggest steaks, the house will pay for it. They are like this. The biggest one they call the bull shipper. And if you got to eat 2 of those, it was free. But if you walk into the Trail Dust with a tie, ties are forbidden in the Trail Dust. And if you happen to walk in with a tie, no matter how expensive it is, or how cool it is, or how classy it is, they will cut it off right there at the door and nail it up on the wall. So no tie has ever got into the Trail Dust alive, okay? But at the door of the ultimate party, you don't just get your tie cut off, you lose all your clothes. No matter how cheap or expensive they are, you'll lose them all right at the door, and you must leave them behind and go in with nothing, but not for long. Of course, I encourage them on that. But believe me, you won't miss them at all. You get a whole new set like nothing you've ever worn before, because nobody goes in without them. It is your identification badge. And each set is crafted before as a perfect fit, and all are utterly unique. The annual Academy Awards party is only open to the most glittering stars of stage and screen in the world, and there you have to be someone in order to see somebody. The ultimate party is a whole different story. In most parties, your fond hope is that you won't wind up paired off with a bunch of sad losers. I lost my girl, my guy, my best friend, my marriage, my mind. Those are all different things. But in almost every case, it hardly ever turns out that way. And you know why, don't you? Because most parties, you only meet people like yourself. But in the ultimate party, you will see others actually with you, people you wouldn't believe you ever could get a chance to hang out with. People you've heard about that even now still affect the world. people that did something awesome with their lives, people who are the real deal, genuine history makers, the kind of people everybody hears about, almost no one ever had the chance to meet, true royalty and beauty, leaders in life and love and song and story from all over, people from every stage and successful society from all walks of life, headliners and honored history makers from every culture and nation on earth. They will be there. What is incredible is that you can actually get to see them up close and in person. And what they help you with in your briefing before you're allowed through the gate guarantees you will not be embarrassed at all or not know how to act or what to say. Have you ever done that? You've seen somebody in a restaurant and there's some amazing person and you go up, you're not, you usually go there, you're like that. I have a friend in New Zealand and he's an amazing speaker to young people. He was in Youth for Christ like I was for some years. He still does a lot of stuff with young people. But one of the strange things about Ian is that he's a stutterer. But you'd never guess it talking to him. Because when he's speaking, he's the most articulate, amazing guy. But in normal life, you talk to him and he's like this. So he's been a lot of times on television and he's flying down to do another one of these series. And there was a lady sitting right beside him in the flight, and she looked at him, and she said, I know who you are. You're Ian Grant, aren't you? You're Ian. And he went to answer, but he was nervous, so he couldn't say it. He went, see that? And because he's funny, she thought it was a routine. So she said, yes, you are, you know. And this went on for about 2 minutes. He's getting more and more embarrassed, you know, and she's getting funny, you know, try again, you know, like this. And now he's red, and he's starting to sweat. And she's looking at him, and suddenly, to her horror, she realizes she has taken on a real stuttering guy and mocked him solidly for 2 minutes in a seat in a plane he can't escape from. So she's terribly, terribly embarrassed. She goes, oh, I am so sorry, but you know, you can't believe how much you look like this guy on television, Ian Grant. Cliff Richard, the famous pop star in England, is Christian. He's a man who's the only one in pop history who has had a #1 chart hit for 5 decades in a row. And often when he's out, people will say, you're Cliff Richard, aren't you? And he goes, oh, no. And they go, yes, you are. Well, no. Yes, I know you are. And he goes, yes, I am. You're not. They do this thing. So, the ultimate party menu is, as you might expect, utterly out of this world. Food served in this party is amazing, but I have to specially mention the drink. They call it new wine. Everybody who's tried it knows there's nothing like it anywhere. It not only makes you feel great, it really does make you smarter, and it helps you get really free from being shy or stupid or self-conscious. I cannot promise you it is not addicting, but it does have absolutely no bad side effects. It leaves you not only really happy with yourself, but believe it or not, actually healthier. You will not only feel better, but be better than you ever thought possible. It is the only drink in the world where you never be embarrassed the morning after. I'm here to say I hope this party is kind to you, successful for the staff that sponsor. I was talking about the rave. There has, however, never been anything like this ultimate party, though every party I have been to actually aspires to run their venue, of course on a smaller scale, something like this. Of course, not everyone will be able to make it for a whole lot of reasons, as they tell me. A lot of people say that other stuff they want to do seems to be to them a better deal. And I understand that. Though I am sure it will be really, really sad on the day they found out what it was they missed. But not everybody has what it takes to pay the price and make it through the actual event. It is certainly true, however, that no one has ever been able to crash this party uninvited. For such an event, the gate is, I am told, perennially guarded by the best security there is. In the Fontana event, there were some people who felt the cows were getting too hard a time in Fontana, so they dressed up as cows and they wanted to crash the event. But they had major security guards that arrested the cows and put them in a van going somewhere else. Such an event, again, the gate is, that is, after all, to be expected for such a life-changing ultimate event, although there's always somebody who thinks they will be the exception and hopes they will find, by their own ingenuity, bull or bluff, another way. There's always that. Every Academy Award, somebody goes, you know, they disguise themselves as a waiter. And yes, I've been into 15 Academy Awards and I've never been to that thing. But hear me, there's no other way in, no other way at all than through the one door. Listen closely, no one gets in there without a genuine gate pass. Absolutely no one. And it is also true that this is the most expensive party you ever heard of. Some people think for some idiot reason that such a party ought to be cheap. But you know, the best things cost the most, and this is indeed the best thing there is. I, and some others here, know personally a little of just how much it costs to put this on. Believe me, out of everything else you could do, this is the one utterly worth it all. No one who gets to really attend it has ever been disappointed or needed a refund. I am authorized to tell you this. The ultimate party leaves every other for dead. So what does it cost? Well, to tell you the truth, to get in costs you pretty much everything. But the funny thing is, by special arrangement with the venue owner and the staff here, everyone here tonight can afford it, even you. To sign up for it, see a real representative who will steer you right, the ones who have the hidden tickets, you'll have to ask. The one who designed it has been working on it like, well, forever. Remember, like all the good first movies, from Star Wars to The Matrix to Lord of the Rings, when you get in, you enter another world. Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. 2,000 years ago, the greatest event maker of all said in his own going-away party, I won't feast with you again till we eat together new in the kingdom. The party is coming. Then he said, I'm going to prepare a place for you. The maker of all made a whole universe in just 6 days. What kind of party is it that takes God 2,000 years to get ready for? And near the end of it, there were, for about half an hour, people going around, have you got any tickets? The whole venue, there were, have you got tickets? See that? And the wife of the guy who put on the event came up to me, crying. She said, I got one. I got a ticket. So isn't this cool? That's really what it's about. You see, one of the astonishing things I found out about God is there's a whole list of things. And one night, and I want to show you some of the things that I found out about him. But he has a whole bunch of things. I mentioned this early to you, those of you who've made it through the morning session. He has a whole bunch of things that are not religious at all. As a matter of fact, when Israel was called to serve God, only 10% of Israel were Levitical. They were the professional religious people. They were the priests and the high priest. And that today we'd have the pastor and the evangelist and the prophet and the missionary and the worship leader. We've got names for, I'll call it, professional callings in the spiritual world. Some of you are here, and that, you know what that is. But in Israel, 90% of the people were not Levitical. And yet that 90% were all supposed to serve the Lord. So one of the astonishing discoveries I've made in the last few years is that God is more than just I suppose some of you realize this. God is more than just a religious person. You know that. He's not actually religious at all. He's scarily spiritual. He is the scariest person I know in the universe. I don't know anybody. The devil is nothing compared to him. They haven't made the scariest movies in the world because they've never been able to make movies about what the Holy Spirit looks like and what God does, even when he doesn't show up. It's just scary. He's also the funniest person in the universe. And you put these two together, they seem like opposites, but they're not. They're part of who he is. So I found, and I'll show you, I haven't got time to do it this morning, but I'll show you, I found 38 major vocations, major real jobs, major things that actually are gifts that he puts into people's lives that are not religious at all. And there's tons of them. It's an amazing thing. I thought in this book I've been working on, I mentioned to you The Nature and Character of God 2, which is going to deal with the nature and character of God as revealed in creation. And what he says, if you want to find out what I'm like, study what I made. So I mentioned to you the Bible that is outside the doors of this. And so I found 38 of these, I call them spiritual vocations, because they're not actually a religious calling, but they can be a gift that is given to you before you're born. And you can grow up with a hunger and an ability to do something, and you don't even know where it came from. But it actually came from another world. And so one of the other sessions I want to do is show you what happens when a person gets an ultimate gift from God. And it is a very special kind of calling. It is the calling of an entertainer. A person who puts on parties. I have a friend, Tony Campola. Some of you have heard Tony. He's a bit of a radical. He's always pushing the outer edge of things. And we need a lot more people who understand that outer edge. I want to show you a little bit before I tell you about what Tony did here. This is a special drink that my son has given me. 100% orange juice, it says. Probably has a special anointing on it, just being there. If I put it by that, it'll be cooked, so I'll put it down there. I want to show you something that goes on in the world that you and I live in. So just underline for you a little bit about what God is like. Everything you see outside that's either alive or moving has some unusual things that happen to it, not normal physics. So I'm going to blow you up something here, if I can do it. I want to show you something which is called a fractal structure. There is a new set of discoveries. This is only about a little more than 36 years old, what you're looking at here. It is a thing that millions and millions of artists understand, but science never did until the last few years. What you're looking at is a structure of something. Now, there's quite a lot of these structures in nature, but this is one of them. How many have ever seen something like this? It's a curly-looking thing. The little sea, what do they call them, sea? Yeah, it's a nautilus structure, but those little things, you drop them in the water and they grow. They have these kind of tails. Sometimes you'll see seashell shapes that are done like this. Now, this is part of a new science called chaos mathematics. This has been one of the most studied new discoveries in the last, I'd say, 30 years, because it seems like the way they discovered this, by the way, is trying to predict weather. You know how hard it is to predict weather. People will always tell you, tomorrow it'll be fine, and it's raining. So some years ago, they thought, what we'll do is if we can get some satellites up there that are very high resolution, that could quickly take pictures of what it looks like around the world, and then process it through some high-speed computers, we ought to be able to predict the weather for maybe months, even years in advance. Great idea. It utterly didn't work, not because their computers weren't fast enough, though they could have been faster, nor that their satellites were no good, though they could have been much sharper, but because the maths they were using to work out the equations were not true. In other words, there's something else in the universe around us that we didn't even understand. Now, the reason I said that artists knew this and musicians know this is that you will, I mentioned it yesterday, you will never be able to sing the same song exactly the same twice. Nor will you ever, we have paintings that have been going on at night, you will never be able to paint the same thing exactly twice. And they found an early Mona Lisa a little while ago, a Da Vinci painting that isn't the Mona Lisa, but it's one of his trials. And it doesn't look like, it actually looks cooler. She looks younger. So the thing is this, that in moving things or creative things, there is never going to be an exact, identical, you can copy it, of course. You can take a picture of it and it'll be the same. But if you're going to do it again, you'll never be able to do it the same twice. So in discovering this, they actually gave it a new name. People used to think that in the world around us, we only had two things. We had cause and effect, Newtonian physics, if you like. You push this button and this thing happens. You push this, it'll always go that way. And so we put a lander on the moon and then on Mars because of that kind of physics. As if you remember that word Newtonian, Isaac Newton was a Christian, and he wrote more stuff about God than he did about physics, but we still use the stuff he has on physics. And the Bible puts that kind of physics like this. He makes his sun to rise on the good and the evil alike. He sends his rain on the just and the unjust alike. This is things that this happens and this will happen. But when you discover this stuff, there are things that are not predictable like that. And that is why weather is like that. If a hurricane is coming towards you, and I live in Texas when I'm here, and hurricanes just come, tornadoes come. Those are the big ones that suck up cows and throw them around and stuff. They will sometimes tell you on the news that hurricane, and they always give it a name, and it used to be just woman until a woman complained bitterly, so it became Hurricane Hugo or somebody else, that was coming. But now they try to put the spaghetti out of the predictions of where they think that thing's going. But the spaghetti's giving them, it could be there and it could be there. But they figure, based on what it's doing, this is a prediction of where it goes. But what they don't put in the spaghetti is what happens if the hurricane is heading for a ranch with about 500 missionaries in it. And as they realize this thing is about an hour away and it's coming straight for us, we should do something. Maybe we could pray and ask God if he could help us. And so, though these spaghetti all are pointing in the same direction, a weird thing happens to that hurricane. It shifts, and it goes out where there's only one cow instead of a bunch of people. See that? And it passes everybody. I have been there when that happened. I was in Bible college when something like that came straight for Central Bible College in Springfield, Missouri. And a lot of people got very deeply intense in their prayer lives at that time because it makes the same sound that flaming train makes when it comes through at 200, like this, it's yelling and screaming at you when you're sleeping, rest. I don't know why in the fat that thing does that. I think it's to warn you that it's coming. And it may come off the train and come straight through your house, whatever that means. So the different people that did these research on this, they found that though in the old days in Newtonian maths, everything was, I'll put it under control. If you did this, this was the consequence. See that? And it was predictable. It was repeatable. You could do it tons and tons of times. So when it got to the wider world where people tried to explain the world they lived in, they came to two bases. One base was total control, total power. And they applied that, of course, to God, because all we know this, God is the most powerful being in the universe. He can do anything. I can't say he can do anything wrong, because he doesn't. He says he cannot lie. There's a few things God cannot do, because it would violate his own law, his own statements of what is true. But there's cause and effect things then in his laws, if he tells you this and that, and we've all known that. But the opposite of this, trying to find not control and consequence and doing this and only that happens, they put in another one and they called it chance, chaos. And there was no God in that, no person, no creativity. It was just a random series of events. And you've got two choices then. Either the universe is ruled and run by one power, see that? Everything down to the tiniest edge of an electron, to this one where there is no God, no personality, it is all randomness. And that's the only two choices you had of the 16th century. But there's another thing. Quantum physics is coming in the last over 100 years now, and we've found out that when you go deep, the world isn't the way you thought it was. Two things spin and they're not connected. And this one shifts and the other one shifts too. It's like, hello, I'll do it too. Quantum is a world of relationships, not one or the other. So now we've found the middle ground. I call it boundaried unpredictability. It's got real boundaries in it. Now look at this thing. This is what nature, in one of its small forms, remember who designed this thing? We have never seen this the way it is. We know the shape, we could even draw it, but we've never seen this before. Here's what happens if I go to explore a fractal shape. Fractal, what does that mean? F-R-A-C-T-A-L. I thought it might have meant, it doesn't actually, but I thought it meant sort of free, like random, like, I can't even think of the second word I used. Never mind, it's in the brain that was fried 2 years ago. I want you to look first at this shape and to see something about it, and that this outside of the shape, this really should be the same basic color. It should be dark. It should be just black. Because once you go on the outside of this shape, you're stepping out of the reality of that thing into darkness. Okay? But in the middle of this whole center here, see, this is inside that shape, but if I blew this up a little bit, it's a bit boring in there. It's always the same. But if you go to the edge of a fractal shape and you have a look at it, now you need to understand this. This is not as marvelous and as wonderful as the original. This is a piece of maths turned into a form you can look at that roughly describes what the real thing looks like. I have to say that because what you're going to see is still going to blow your mind. And it isn't even as cool as the real thing. So watch this. If I go to an edge here, and I can pick any edge at all, and what you're looking, the computer is blowing it up. I'm just going to pick one. Maybe, I don't know, there. Notice carefully, these things all look pretty much alike, don't they? But they're not. That one is not identical to that one. This little one here is not, watch. Let me go here just for fun. Yeah, jewelry. Oh, by the way, how big does this get? Forever, till the computer runs out. You're looking at the way God made things, the way they actually operate. And why did he wait so long for you guys? Why does it take over 2,000 years to pass on something he's done forever? You either are really special or it's time things were wrapped up and you better at least know what it looked like before it's closed. How big is this? In New York City, they have not in the city itself, they have a zoo in New York. They have an elephant in it. You know, elephants are not cheap. They're also not easy to weigh. But in order to feed an elephant, you have to weigh it. Can you imagine what it's like feeding an elephant? And you've got to weigh the elephant. Would you like to try and weigh an elephant? You don't have your little scales it can stand on and stuff. Elephants are big. But in order to find out how much food they need, in a place where elephants can't just eat anything, you have to weigh them. And then you've got to measure them. It's even scarier to measure an elephant. But they did. And they wanted to work out exactly the amount of food that the elephant would need. And so they started feeding their elephants. But the poor elephants were starving. And they worked out their maths. You know, look, we've got the weight is roughly right. And the size is right. And all of that. So why in the fat are these elephants starving? What they didn't know is that the skin of an elephant is fractal like that, and there's a lot more skin on the elephant than you think there is. And if you don't understand what that is, think if you bought a section by the beach somewhere or by the lake. Some of you are staying in the cabins near there, and somebody asks you, oh, you just bought that land? Yeah. How big is it? And then you tell them, well, it's pretty good. You know, it's about, I don't know, it's about 100 feet in this direction, or maybe 200 feet. You might even say, well, it's like a quarter of an acre or something, you know. You might say that. But how big actually is that section that you have? Because when you look at a section, how are you going to measure it? With a measuring tape? See, when it curves in? You probably get a piece of string and you do this, but that string will be longer than your measuring tape. But when you see this, how big is that string going to be? A little while ago, they said if you had a damaged brain, I understand this, then you'll lose a certain amount of ability. But your brain is very large, and it will handle a whole bunch of other things. A few years ago, they said most people only use 2 or 3% of their brain's possibilities, where a few geniuses, the Einstein-type people, had a slightly larger percentage, but you still got plenty. But the brain, too, is fractal. They now say you have about 13 million years of data storage possible in an ordinary brain. So I'll say it again in case you missed it. 13 million years. That's kind of longer than you're going to live in this body. Okay, so the thing I want to show you is this. Remember, your brain is fractal. Your liver is fractal. Your kidneys are fractal. Your skin is fractal. There's all kinds of stuff built into you that is much more marvelous than you can imagine. David put it like this: I am fearfully and wonderfully made. You actually are. You're a living, walking, breathing miracle. And all of us are. You don't have to be some superstar in order to have this. It's there already. It's there in you. When we're doing research on DNA, and there were 2 key people. One was American, and he was a Christian. The other guy was an atheist, and he was in England. Worked for a long time to try and find out the DNA of a human being. What we wanted was a huge telephone directory of everything that was in there. And the general idea was if you could look up somebody's name, whether it was a dangerous thing that had happened, then you could sell it to somebody. Oh, you want the address of that? Well, it'll cost you about $20,000, but we could show you that. See that? And the whole idea was that the DNA is all there is. It's the bottom line. And after you put it all together, it's embarrassing to find out that something runs the DNA. And it isn't the bottom line. There's something else. There is stuff here that has never been seen before. I've got another little thing, I can't show it to you now, but when I flip this, I'll go back in again just so you can see. This is only, by the way, one fractal shape. There are hundreds and hundreds they've discovered. The fern I mentioned to you yesterday, that's a fractal shape too. You know what's funny? You look out at the universe and they're designed the same way. Now I want to show you something about the church. I call this edge a fractal edge. This middle part, remember, if you blew this up, it's changeless, stays exactly the way it is. The outside edge is darkness, there's nothing there. But this little edge in here is constantly amazing. This is what revival is. When you get inside what God says is true, His laws define that particular, not this particular shape, but all of those different things. His laws describe what reality looks like. Outside of those laws is darkness. Cross the line, see if you can break the law of God, and I promise you one thing, you will go straight into darkness. It may take time for that darkness to work out in your life, but it will work out and you will not escape it. Cross the line and you can die. The middle part, you will stay safe, but it will be boring after a while. And God made us not to be bored. And every revival I have ever seen has never been the same as the one before. And the greatest battle a new awakening has is from the backslidden fruit of the revival before it, who remember what that looked like in the particular amplification they were given, and will compare that one with your one and say, wait a minute, that is not the same as what happened to me. And they're exactly right, but they're wrong. Isn't that one the same as that one? Yes and no. They have the same DNA, if you like. They have the same structure, but they're never alike. I'll say it again. When you go outside, take 2 blades of grass, pick them up and look at them. Same kind of grass. They will look identical, but they're actually not. The more you look at it, the more these tiny little differences that there are. When a revival begins, there is a passage in Scripture in the book of Joel, and some of you remember this. In the last days, God will pour out His Spirit. We are more last days today than we were before. Keith Green started Last Days Ministries. This is going to be the anniversary of Keith's death 30 years ago. But we are more last days than last days was then. Those of you who remember what the Jesus movement was like, there is a Jesus movement more that isn't the same as the one before, but it has elements of those same things. So in any awakening God brings, there are things that are the same that you'll recognize. None of them cross that line. None of them go out into the darkness. When you are in something that begins to cross the line and go out into the darkness and breaks what God says in His book is true, you are going to see the end of that thing or the disaster that happens in it. It cannot be escaped. If you try to walk out of it and it's described what it is, then He's telling you the truth. God doesn't lie. He's like Superman, only better. As a matter of fact, I have a big poster of Superman in my lab. And in the early one, I had this underneath. It said, he came from another world. He was sent by his father on a mission to the earth. He had power that nobody had, see? He stood up for truth and for justice. We could throw the American way in there, too, if you wanted it. And it's got this picture of Superman flying, and it says underneath, and this is not a picture of him. when God brings an awakening, he will take part of a DNA structure, something like something else, and then as long as you stay in this edge here, it will be scary, but it'll also be wonderful. And this tells you some other thing, and I'm using that phrase from the book of Joel because it speaks about a locust army, and God calls it my army. We've sung those songs. Have you remember that? Songs about I can run through a troop, leap over a wall, hallelujah, those older songs and stuff, talking about really using the book of Joel's illustration of locusts. But do you know how locusts actually form? They are scary locusts. Locusts are not like the mosquitoes that are in Minneapolis, which are also scary but small. Minneapolis should be called Mosquitoapolis because it is, you can tell right out here, one of the big things that mark Minneapolis, that's mosquito territory. Yes, it is here. They're there. But listen, you can kill a mosquito. You just got and you hit it with some anti-mosquito. They're gone. But locusts, have you ever seen a locust? Yeah, some of you had them. They're actually quite scary. If you've ever walked through like a cornfield and locusts have been eating them, and they jump, they got like sticky feet. They can jump right on you like that. Now, if you tied this in with like some wasp and then some Ebola virus, you'd have like the scariest demonic, and you know, like this. They're frightening things, and they're quite big. I have a big rubber locust. I have it like about this big, and I used to, when I was teaching on revival, I'd hide it behind, this, and then I'd pull it out and throw in the audience. But I think one old lady died in the front, so had to take it away, and, sorry, but so it's sitting up cased in my New Zealand revival library. It's behind glass, so it'll stay safe. But when a locust army flies, the whole movement of the locust army can be to 30 miles long and a mile or a mile and a half wide, and so thick they blot out the sun when they fly. So what are you going to do if the locust army comes? Going to stand out there with your can of Raid and go revivals move like locust armies. And there's another strange thing about a locust army. Locusts, I've seen so many stupid movies, okay? Told you why. Seen all kinds of movies. A whole bunch of them are stupid movies. I've seen a lot of Christian movies. Even more are stupid movies. One movie, which became a major thing, was like a movie it was kind of like the Antichrist movie, okay? And there was some lovely Christian people that were trying to sort of influence the study of a movie that would sort of, say, I can't say honor the Antichrist, but say that he's real, and, all these scary Exorcist type movies were one of them. You remember The Exorcist? The Exorcist was totally the scariest movie of all time. I had a great time in The Exorcist. We had like tracts to give out. People come in, and you give them a tract and they get saved straight away. It was really good, The Exorcist. But these Antichrist movies, sometimes there's 4 or 5 of them, like that. And one of them, it was, I don't know if it was the second or third movie, it got further and further away from what God actually said in the Bible. It's just like people go, well, we could do this. And so they had an army. They knew there was some locust army. And there was this little locust in the front of the army, and it had like a gold crown. And that was sort of, they're all looking, like when they do monster movie, the big, like this. And this is supposed to convince you of the scariness of the locust army by putting this dumb-looking lead. I think it was a little bigger than the other locust, too. And he had a gold crown on, which meant he was like the lead locust. That is a movie that's both theologically incompetent and practically idiotic because The Bible says, the locusts have no king. So how in the fat did they get that king locust in there? They're trying to get anywhere near what is going to happen in the end of time. Locusts don't have a king. It's easy to stop an army that's got a king. You shoot the king. That's the end of the army. They go, oh, shoot, he's not here, let's go home. See, you just boom and you blow them away and that's it. So if there's some gold-crowned locust, take him out. Get a... couple of weeks ago, William and I had a friend of ours, I told you Bob Maddox, he signed us up to go and meet this guy. We weren't allowed to ask his second name. His name was Bill, but if we told our second name, we'd be killed because he has this collection of incredible weaponry, you know. So he took us down to a range, and we got to shoot the biggest available handgun in the world. It's a Magnum 5 billion or something. It's about that big. I shot in my stupidity, I think it was here somewhere, when Agape Force was, it started up, and Steve, you might even remember that, I don't know, but some idiot Agape Force guy, we were all going out to have fun in a park, and they had some handguns, and I have shot a BB gun, you know, but I have never shot a handgun, and they give me this gun. They say, okay, you know, you want to try? And I go, yeah, because I'm stupid, you know, yeah. I told you, they put out a target on it's down on the ground. They never put it up. You know why? I'll tell you why later. They put it down on the ground, okay? So I watched, you know, Harry movies and stuff. So it's a heavy gun, you know, and it's, you know, got the chamber here and quite a long front on it, and it's big, you know, like, so I'm looking at that, and they go, now, the target is, you know, the one that's got the circles and made of paper, and it's stuck on a stump of a tree. There's the target, so I've seen a lot of movies. I know you have to brace your hand with these. You can't just go, hi, you know, got to do that. So I did that, but I didn't know quite how the brace worked. I did this, see, and I had my fingers down here somehow, right under the chamber, not in front of the gun. I'm not that stupid. It was like that. So I lined up. This is how you're supposed to shoot a gun. I understand, you know, photography. When you're taking a picture, you don't go like that because then you take a picture of the person's toes or something. You're supposed to, when you've got a proper camera, you're supposed to take a breath, let it out, and squeeze like that. That's what you're supposed to do. So I do. Boom! The loudest sound I have ever heard in my entire life. Like two 747s firing on both ears. I went deaf. I could not hear for 15 minutes. And my stupid Agape friends, they're all laughing. I could not believe it. A Magnum 44. It wasn't a Harry gun. So, with ears bleeding, I went over to look at the target. What target? There was no target. There was little strips of paper where the target used to be. And there's a hole this big blowing on the stump of the tree, right through it. Dear Lord. So a couple of weeks ago, my friend signs us up to go down with this guy who's visiting. He's not part of that thing. Remember, you die if you find your second name. So he's got the next one up. It's like $20 to buy a shell on these things. So I'm And I asked him, why do they always put, because this time you got a person's, shoot at? Not a real person, there'd be a lot of bodies in that thing. Just paper that travels, see that? But it's down there, and I thought, I'm not going to fight dwarfs. Boom, boom. Got any small kids? I'll take them out. Yeah. I didn't understand till I fired this. And by the way, there's some soldiers, they're taking a break, going back to Iran, Iraq, and to the war zones. They're all firing like that. When this gun goes off, they all stop, and they all come around. So this time I have pink stuff in my ears. I have deals. I would have put on 8 pairs. I'm wise now because I have fired one of those before. See that? Only much bigger now. And I fired. Fire. It went way up, and all the soldiers went, what is that? Yeah. So we shot that, and then we shot the fastest bullet in the world. So I've forgotten what it's called. It's got some weird lignin something or other. But it shoots like 2 miles and takes you out. And it's 2,000 foot a second. And they said if one guy had this one and one, you would both die no matter where it hit you. Only one would die faster. What happens with this locust? How are you going to stop that? Here's how locust army, they don't stand behind the guy with the crown. They don't do that because there is no guy with a crown. It is a phenomenon in nature where an entire bunch of creatures behave as if they have one mind. Got a special name, okay? Here's what happens. When the locust army begins, a few of them go like this. But they don't all get together. They don't all go. They don't do that at all. You ever seen birds that are getting ready to fly? They don't all line up. Okay, salute, and there's the chief bird in front. Yes, I'm here. They fly like this. Some of them come back. Oh, I haven't eaten. And they come back. See that? So when locusts fly, they like this. And you think, oh, that's revival. And it is, but it isn't. It's just the first little flicker. And then a little bit later, sometimes days later, and there's more of them. The others are still chewing on whatever they're chewing on, whatever's left of what they're chewing on. And then more. And then you start hearing like this, and then and then it's on, see? Revivals come like this. You'll see one or two. You go, oh, what is that? That's a revival. Let's go, see? You stand around and you look at it, yeah, well, it's a revival. Yes, it is a revival. It's a real revival. But that's not the rest of it, see? You could even take that revival out. You guys think there's a revival? Find that guy with a crown. Shoot him. He doesn't know. But when the bigger ones come, you go, oh, there's a bit more than I thought. I've watched revivals for a long time. This is how revivals come. Watch for the first locusts. They're real. It's a real thing. But it's not the end thing. There will come a day when in the region where they're going to fly, there are so many, nobody can stop them. And that's what God says. You can have walls on a city. You can have gates that close, but it will not stop a locust army. It just comes, and it not only takes out what's there, it lays eggs. In the next 2 generations, it takes out also. Isn't that strange that God would use an illustration of a locust army to describe the last days? I think it's like this. That what God does is not only scary, but powerful. It chews up everything, but then it also plants for the next 2 generations. That's what we've got now. Going to show you Time is gone and we have to go and eat something. Well, you guys are all... I just want to show you one passage in the scriptures. My son got this for me. Isn't that wild, that thing? If you're in the center and it's boring, go out to the edge and watch for something that isn't in there yet. Look at that edge. Do not turn away the people who are coming. As long as they don't break that rule, welcome them, because that's what the next thing looks like. You hold on to what you got. It'll be there. You'll be safe and nice, and you'll go to heaven, but you'll miss it. You'll miss the next one. Can you turn that just to King James? Is fine. 78. Yeah, just cut out that other. Cut out. There's two of them. Yeah, that's good. There are two psalms. Well, there's a lot of psalms. The book of Psalms is God. I told you earlier, those of you been in these early things, the book of Psalms. Getting closer all the time. Somebody stole my revival. Oh, it's on the ground. How strange. See if you can find in one of those Psalm 78. Have a look in one of those. It might be in there. Yeah. No. My son is awesome. He's kind of like Spot, you know. He can track down. While William's looking at that, you got it? I just want to show you this. The book of Psalms is God's record-keeping thing and storage of stuff that, when amplified, will answer whatever question you have on your heart. It's not just about religious things, it's about all kinds of things. Remember, this book is not just a book about God, it's a book about everything. So, there are two Psalms. Psalm 102, it's part of this. It actually looks like this, but I can't find it. Yeah, hang on to that, but it's probably smaller. Oh, there it is. Thank you. Give him a clap. He's an amazing person. Okay, I'll take my glasses off so I can read this. Quick thing. Nearly half the world is under 25. 18 out of 20 get saved before they reach the age of 25. How many of you are Christians here got saved before you reached the age of 25? I've done this all over the world. It's amazing how many people get saved. Okay. I'm not going to ask you how many of you got saved later than that, but I will tell you. After 25, only there is one, you have a chance of getting saved. There's one chance in 10,000, statistically speaking, that you will get saved. There, however, if you reach the age of 35, there is one chance in 50,000, statistically speaking, that you will get saved. And even after 45, there is still a chance for you to get saved. It is 1 in 200,000. And I was in Brownsville when a 95-year-old man got saved. And he was being baptized that night in a cold pool. So he's giving a little testimony before they baptized him, how he had left eating snuff or whatever his addiction was. And he said, I asked, give you testimony. He said, I just gave my life to Jesus, and I'm going to serve him for the rest of my life, which I knew was going to be about 2 minutes after they put him in that cold baptismal spot. People ask me, why are you still working with teenagers and kids? Because God gave me more than one brain cell, that's why. I have pastors that say to me, like, why don't you get another job? You know, why do you keep working with kids all the time? Why don't you become a district presbyter or something? And I have pastors that go, you know, we need to take care of our young people. They're the future of the church. And tell them, Pastor, bless your heart. You're not the future of the church. They are the church. And if you don't put a significant amount of time into reaching and caring for them, you have no future. I had a good friend of mine. He went to New York, and he was preaching there, and he asked the pastor, where's your youth group? And he got a shock because he thought they were the youth group. And 40 years before, they were the youth group. It is possible to stay in the middle and think you've got it all. But there's all these new things right on the fractal edge. And what God is doing, you've got to stay flexible. I told you right at the start, I'm only out to see two things. May not be able to accomplish them. I want to see you all drunk and crazy. That's what I'm after. I want to see you break down these little boxes that you've safely built yourself into and give that edge a shot if you haven't done it already. Now look at this verse, and with this we'll leave. We may pick it up some other time, I'm not sure. This is one of two amazing psalms that have, I will open my mouth in a parable. Those usually wake up. Don't they come in usually in the New Testament? I will utter dark sayings of old, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. We will not hide them from their children, showing the generation to come. See that little phrase, generation to come? Make a mark of that little phrase because it only appears a couple of times in the Bible. It says, the praises of the Lord and his strength and his wonderful works that he has done. For he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers, that they should make them known to their children, and here it is again, that the generation to come might know them, even the children which should be born, who should arise and declare them to their children. See how this goes on? Remember the locusts? They come and they leave something, and then something after that, and then something after. That's what true revival does. It's not coming and going. It leaves something that the next generation, in this case, can live on. That's what it's for. So it comes like this. That they might set their hope in God and not forget the work of God, but to keep his commandments. And then it gives a scary little statement. That they might not be as their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that set not their heart aright and whose spirit was not steadfast with God. The children of Ephraim being armed and carrying bows. They had swords, they had close-up weaponry, and then they had bows, long-range weaponry. And God told them, there's a battle coming, and I'll give you the weapons for it. And the battle came, and they simply laid aside their weapons and let their children die. What happened to those people? I think many, many generations have seen these verses and looked at them and thought, that could be our generation. I think this one matches that even more than previous generations before. So next shot I have with you, I want to show you what God's answer was in that. Go eat something.